Okay, guys, welcome. Thanks for joining me, Ryan, Rainier, and Lumen. Say hi to the crowd.
What's up, everyone? We're back finally.
Indeed. Hey everybody, good to be back.
Yeah, Lumen says finally. That's a big downs for me. I've been very hard to schedule in, and these guys were gracious enough to wait for me to go through these minors and get into the CD minors, which are actually for the most part, an extremely strong set. And so there's a lot to talk about here, a lot to discuss. And while I have been out of the Agricola streets for a little while, these two gentlemen certainly have not. They've played their fair share of CD and have some tidbits for the audience as well to get through. Couple of ground rules to remember. These rankings are in the context of kind of the entire Agricola card set community, the entire Agricola card set that's out there, not just what's on VGA right now. And so there is a little bit of a different ranking than it would be just in the confines of this in this set. And Rainier and Lumen in particular will go a little bit deeper into explaining that when it particularly affects one card. Other than that, I think we should dive right in and take a look at our set. And I'll pass the first one off right to you, Lumen.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, as you mentioned, the BGA card set is a lot more narrow, and the overall expansions are wider. And Clay supports, we start off with a card that is very affected by those expansions that aren't on BGA. Specifically in the Babulcus B deck expansion, I'm sorry, I'm butchering Latin. The that specific set comes with 5 cards that allow earlier renovation before the renovation card flips. So because of that, Clay Supports is, I think, all of our number one. For those of you who've played it on BGA, you are aware of how cheap it makes your Clay rooms. And with a lot of extra resources in the game compared to the original edition, the ease of acquiring 2 or 3 rooms worth of Clay Supports resources is very easy. And when you tack that on to having 2 cottagers in every deck effectively, it's going to be really easy to build in Clay with Clay Supports.
Yeah, thanks, Lumen. It's kind of like the Carpenter's Parlor of Clay, right? So very cool, very great start. And we'll dive right into to Ryan here with I think one of the strongest plows there is in any of the sets. I guess riding plow might be a bit better, but we'll leave that to you, Ryan.
Yeah, this is a very strong plow card. You do have to have 3 occupations. It costs 3 wood, but you essentially get 4 extra field tiles if you just plow twice. It does only work on the farmland space, but getting that much efficiency, just getting 6 tiles to fill your farm yard off of 2 plow actions is really great efficiency. It maxes your field points. It helps fill your farm. The plow space can get contested some games. This helps speed that up. It can get your crops going very fast. And again, in the overall revised decks, plows can be a little tight at times, and this really solves your plowing needs.
Got it. So coming up next, we've got Bookshelf, and Bookshelf looks like an absolute monster on BGA right now. I think we'll leave this one to you, Lumen, to chat a little bit about this, and maybe you can talk about it in relation to some of the other like occupation related and themed minors as well in Ox.
Yeah, absolutely. So um, overall, once you leave the base set of Revised, you're going to have a lot higher quality of occupations to choose from. And that means the meta shifts from the base set Revised, where you're not going to play many occupations, to a lot of situations where you can justify playing a lot of occupations. So, Bookshelf not only is the wood to the point, but 3 food for tempo while you play occupations is just a huge boost. So that can either be 3 or 6 food if you're not going to take huge advantage of your bookshelf, all the way up to 12 food if you are going to take advantage of the bookshelf. Combine that in the specific CD meta that BGA currently has. You have tutor, writing desk, lantern house, patron, begging student, scholar. There's so many reasons and ways you can play a lot of occupation, and bookshelf helps with all of them.
Love it. Moving right on to the clay oven master himself. I'm actually surprised here to see these ranks, and Ryan, you got Putter Strong with 8, and Lumen and I both have it at 4. I was shocked. I thought before I looked at this site I'd seen that this might be like your number 1 or 2. So I was a little disappointed here.
Yeah, it's possible it could be a little higher. I mean, we all agree it's a very strong card. It's one of the top tiers. It's free to play, which is great. And then as long as you get Bake Bread actions, you get to turn a clay into a grain and bake it. So it essentially lets you turn clay into very efficient food if you get bake actions. But again, this is one where I think you could be a little distracted by the fact that the set on BGA right now, I think, has so many bake enablers. I don't think you're going to find as many bake actions in other sets. Also, there's so many grain cards and so many things. Like, it can be hard to get the oven sometimes, even if you have Potter Ceramics, even if you're trying to prioritize it. Like, maybe you have to prioritize the oven instead of prioritizing the room queue. Like, it's still a very strong card, though. To have a card essentially solve your feeding for the game is great.
And not only the amount of bake actions, but the amount of clay that CD meta currently has. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think it probably goes hand in hand, and then with Bookshelf and some of these other Ox specific miners that get a boost from the current concentration of the set. I'll take this next one. So Field Fences, and actually it's funny. I have this ranked the lowest. I mean, obviously it's an incredible card, but I think one of the things to not overlook here is not only this is one of these cards that falls into the category of cards that gives you wood at the exact time that you need it, which is really awesome, and it also gives you a fence action. And the way I play sometimes because I fence a little bit later than I probably should in a lot of senses, just having this in your hand is just like the best feeling of all time, right? It has to be. So having that kind of secret fence action that is also discounted, to pull out closer later to the end of the game, and it is oftentimes secret because this is oftentimes a first pick miner, right? Very, very cool stuff, and really strong card. Mini Loom, the Mini Loom, or maybe it's better than Loom. I don't know. It's similar to Loom.
Who wrote this? Ryan, did you write this? How dare you?
I did.
Diet Loom. Yeah, Ryan, we'll give this one to you then.
Yeah, I wrote that one. Yeah, I mean, it's very good. It's essentially like Loom. It doesn't have a printed point. It costs 1 wood less. It works for cows instead of sheep. But yeah, the idea is the same. You just later in your game, you get some breeding cows going, and you get extra food and extra points for doing that. It's really good. Milking stool, a lot of times you can just take 1 cow, take 1 other cow at another, like slightly later on. Now you have breeding cows, you get up to 4 total cows for the game. That means milking stool is going to give you like 3 food and 2 points. That's a great payout for 1 wood. It can be even better. You can, get up to 6 cows or something crazy. Like it definitely is pretty fun. And it's hard to get early cows on BG at the moment, but some of the later decks also let you have some weird combos with this.
We're gonna have to issue a quick. I like to do these things. I don't know because I haven't been in the streets, but I don't know if either of you guys have gone after that Bellfounder challenge yet. But I need this. I need a 4-point milking stool challenge to come out for that from the community here. I would love to see it. If someone could post one of those, that'd be awesome.
Bellfounder, I have not gotten Bellfounder, Clay Deliveryman, Clay Supply in the same draft, but I promise you once I do.
Oh, can't wait. How many points did I make it? I made it pretty crazy, didn't I?
You said 10, which is a real problem. A 4-point milking stool is like, it's a challenge, but they're like with some animal dealer cow herd stuff, it's possible. But anyhow, that'll be fun to try someday.
Okay, on to Lettuce Patch. Lumen.
So when we talked about Beanfield in the base set, we had a minor improvement. The cost of food gave you a point and gave you a place to sow your vegetables. And we rated that pretty highly. So the only downside as you go from Beanfield to Lettuce Patch is needing 1 more occupation in your prerequisite, but literally everything else about Lettuce Patch is just better. Is this the only free miner in Revise that comes with a point? It might be, because for some reason it didn't get hit by a 1 food penalty. I don't know why. But when you have a lot of veggies and sow it on here, you can use it as emergency feeding if either you have a lot of vegetables already or if you just don't find a place to get 4 food some other way. It's just extremely flexible. You don't need a cookery to do this food transformation.
Cool. On to Bookcase. Bookcase is Bookshelf's cousin, younger cousin. Um, Very strong. Each time after you play the occupation, you get a vegetable. Just, very, very, very slightly not as strong as Bookshelf, but I mean, have you guys got to play a game earlier on in the meta when you got both of these? That's really
Oof.
nice to have them stacked up.
I haven't, but it sounds awesome.
I
Yeah,
did one.
sounds.
I did one day. Yeah, it is great.
Oh yeah.
I want to point
Seems
out.
feels good.
I want to point out that I think playing Bookcase too early can be a trap. You don't need
Okay.
to play it immediately once you have one occupation only, because you really need a hearth and to not spend your room parts too early and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're just giving up too much to get like one extra vegetable, two extra vegetables.
Got it. Yeah, and it's very much something that everyone should be worried about is spending that two wood too early, right? I see a lot of people make that kind of mistake, and that's why a lot of those like sack card and the vegetable version of that one as well. People, large greenhouse. I see people playing those and kind of just going from 5 wood to 3 wood and just destroying their own games. Just pure seppuku. So do be aware of that, guys. Clay Supply is a cool card. And Ryan, right? It's one of these unassuming cards that doesn't look very powerful at all, and it's just actually just excellent.
Yeah, it's great. The clay comes pretty quickly. It only costs a food, so there's no real hard prerequisites to it. And clay is a resource that a lot of times you need like a specific amount, and you often only need like one or two more, but it takes a full action to get. Now you just play Clay Supply on a start player while fighting for growth, or just to change up the turn order when you need to, and it often just can save you a clay action. And so a minor improvement that has no prerequisites, cost only a food. It's just very flexible, and yeah, you can find use for it almost certainly.
Yeah, wonderful. It looks like a perfect card to pick up especially when you're in fourth seat. Just like play on the wheel on turn one, and it's just it gives you real immediate stage one value, right? And having a second turn that gives you real immediate stage one value is just fantastic to have. Lantern House. Actually, I'm interested to hear you guys talk about this one because when I ranked these, Lantern House is one of the cards that I haven't played with over the board because it's in the newest set, and I really wasn't sure how hard or how easy this was going to be to do in practice, and because I haven't been in the streets, what do you guys think? Is it what's been going on? What have you guys been seeing?
I think in
Ryan,
general.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, I don't think it's too hard to get this to be worth 3 or 4 points. I think there can be mistakes made if you try too hard to make it worth all 7. But I think a nice place to be is just like possibly being willing to give it up and not play it at all in round 1 if things don't go your way, but also to not force it to be worth 7 points because you really don't want to be playing like Oven Firing Boy or Wall Builder in round 12 just to hit your 7th Lantern House point.
Yeah, I can also see this to me, there looks to be like a really common trap here, and I don't know if this is happening in practice or not, but if you're just like in the 3rd seat and draft a pretty normal, whatever plan it might be and have Lantern House and then the game just starts RSF 3 wood and then you're in that 3rd seat. Do you see people pivoting, or do you see people like doing off the board stuff? Like, I'm just wondering because again,
sometimes they'll take 2 wood into start player and hand Ox downstream. Like, I agree with Lumen. Like, it's a really tricky card. A couple of hands you actually like might play everything and you really do want to get it out, but I think people need to be a little more flexible with it sometimes, and just sometimes you just get early Ox, just take them, ignore Lantern House. Sometimes Lantern House is only going to be 3 to 4 points, and a card that costs a wood and you have to play early around awkward tempo for only 3 or 4 points is like, it's good, but it's really not that great. Like, it's really easy, I think, to overestimate these points on how much you're giving up in order to get them.
Yeah, got it. Okay, Blueprint. We got the Stonecutter Blueprint combo. This is again, Ryan. This must be one of your favorite cards, right?
Well, I thought so, but the more I've been playing with it, I've been moving it down. It turns out it's surprisingly tricky. Like, it's a great card because it just costs a food, but it costs a lot of improvement actions to get all those guilds. Like, yes, you can play other minor improvements, but you often want to play other minor improvements in your hand. And so now you need to play Blueprint, take the guilds, and still be playing your other minor improvements potentially. And that's a lot of improvement actions. To actually exploit the guilds, as I say, you need a lot of actions gathered resources. And the guilds are fine feeding, but not super efficient. So it can be hard to have like a great Blueprint game.
Yeah, I would have expected this card to be really, really strong. So that's interesting to hear. I'm excited to give it a try myself. And then into turn rest plow. So Lumen, we'll pass it over to you too. It looks like Ryan's not nearly as thrilled about this plow support as, and I imagine it's because of that 3 wood cost, or.
No, I think it's possibly just a playstyle thing. And viewers will notice that the tiers are slightly messed up from some sorting issues. But we're right on the edge of the A and B tier right now. So turn rest plow's biggest like dream is to secretly give yourself plow sow cultivation in the late game while only having 0 or 1 fields and already having some crops. So this is a way to like sneak in a ton of crop points in the end game, but it's not necessarily that good of a plow to use in the mid game. Otherwise, you'd actually rather have moldboard plow, which gives you the same extra amount of fields with 1 fewer wood cost and I think 1 less Ock in the prereq. But it's more of a playstyle thing. If you're not a fan of getting your crops really late, then turn rest plow is not very good for you. Like, it's still good, but not like really good. And if you are a fan of putting off crops until your late game, turn rest is amazing.
Yeah, this just feels like such a great card. Just build all your rooms, 4 or 5 rooms, and just do all your farming late, just like you guys like to. Okay, guys. So tell me about Half Timbered House here, because when I again looked at this sight unseen, this looks way too expensive to be worth it, and I obviously missed something here because you guys are laughing at me. So yeah, Ryan, give me the good news here on Half Timbered House.
You're not wrong that it's expensive, but also Revised has a ton of resources and not all that many points. 4 and 5 room house strats are not that uncommon. So Half Timbered House is 5 resources to 5 points. How is that bad? The answer is it's not. It's quite good, actually. It provides a lot of victory points sealing to big house game plans. Occasionally, you can pull off ridiculous, like clay support games where you build 10 rooms and still figure out how to reno. Like, you can also like pull off absurd Half Timbered House games. That's not going to be anywhere near as common, but there's plenty of cards and strategies in this set to go for 4 and 5 room stone houses. And so Half Timbered House is just great victory point ceiling for those hands.
Yeah, I got it. And I guess when you put it that way, 5 points for 5 resources, it's kind of like running, right? So, yeah, very cool. Granary, moving.
So Granary, in a lot of ways, is a better sack cart. How many times when you play sack cart do you hit that 5th round grain? Not many. And if you do, you're probably giving up your room parts for it. So not only does this give you grains 2, 3, and 4 of sack cart at equal or better times, but it also gives you a point and lets you pay with 3 clay instead of 2 wood. And you can pay in 3 wood if things go badly. So think of it as just like a boosted up sack cart if you haven't played with Granary in the original edition before.
Yeah, got it. And right into Woodfield Lumen, which looks like it's in your top 10 here. And yeah. Explain yourself with this one, because this didn't look that strong to me. So yeah, I'm interested to hear it.
All right. So also the tiers got messed up with this one, and maybe I put it in the A tier before I saw everyone's rating. Who knows? But what is wrong with spending food for a point? Absolutely nothing. That already makes like a very solid card, right? I think once you start playing with more expansions, there's more opportunities to sow and have extra wood lying around. Where you have 5 wood in the mid game, you're not going to fence with 1 more wood action. So if you sow some wood, you're going to net up a couple extra wood by the end of the game for either a joinery or 2 more stables. So I think that there's a lot of hidden value in Woodfield once you find game plans or expansions with more sow actions.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess it in a way lends itself to be a really good early game improvement as well. Like, to play on turn 2 or 3 or 4, or in round 2 or 3 or 4, or even on your first growth as well, I suppose, and get ready for a so action going into stage 3. That's pretty interesting. I didn't really think of it in that manner. Education bonus, another AUK specific one. Ryan.
Yeah.
This
So
hits your top 10. This is
yeah.
that's a big ranking there too.
Yeah, it might be a little too high. But as I say, or like as it's written here, the real key thing about education bonus to pay attention to is really that kind of like 5th and 6th payout. Getting a vegetable and a field is really good. Those are normally actions if you don't have other sources of them, or even if you have some source of them, it just saves you an action each. And it's coming when you're playing occupation. So if you have a hand that you remotely think you want to play 6 occupations, or you might, and that's going to be increasingly common in this deck, or it's just because you've hit combos with the bookshelf or some of the other Nock enablers. This card, you spend a food and you get a veg and a field. That's great. As it's written here as well, I say it's a huge trap to try to get too much out of it. That first payout of a grain, that's also quite a great payout. It's just having 2 improvements and play an education bonus before your first occupation is probably wrong at 98% of the time. Like, that just means you're taking too many early improvement actions. So I think this is a card that you're happy to draft if you think you're going to play a bunch of Ox, and you just kind of play it towards the mid to late game and get a veg and field, and that's an incredible payout for 1 food.
And maybe a stone too. Like the stone for
Or
the
the
4th Ock
reed.
is,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, sometimes you get those things, and all of those payouts are quite useful still too.
And just because I haven't seen this printed cost here before, and I haven't played with this card, it doesn't count itself. Obviously, you need to play 2 improvements and a third. This is the 3rd improvement.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Okay, Carrot Museum. So this card looked really funky to me, and I didn't really see it, obviously, with my ranking of 39 here. But Lumen, I mean, you have this in your top 10, so obviously it's possible to actually make this work. And
Yeah.
I can imagine in my mind some cards that do it, but maybe there's just more than I'm imagining.
Correct. Given the structure of every revised deck, I think what I remember is that every deck needs to have at least 3 minor improvements that provide vegetables in some way. So that's just minor improvements, and occupations do this too, such as childless. I've started drafting Carrot Museum very highly, especially in the Board Game Arena set right now, with Bookcase, both greenhouses. There's a bunch of other ways to get vegetables, Winter Caretaker, Grocer, etc. The upside on Carrot Museum is just enormous. It's kind of annoying to play this by round 8 with a wood and 2 clay, but when you can with enough vegetables, this gives you mid-game fences better. This gives you well parts if someone hasn't built the well. There's so many things you can do with wood and stone, the 2 best resources, 2 best building resources. So something that gives you 2 points and then gives you good building resources, such incredible value in some situations.
Yeah, it looks very, very fun to play. I'm pretty excited to get into it there. Writing desk. So I'll take writing desk. It looks like my ranking is right on the ECR. I'm right in the middle of you two.
I won't abide either of your ratings, but
you want okay? I was gonna take it myself, but Ryan, I'm gonna give it to you here. I'm gonna give it to you. Why can't you abide this?
Occupations are good. Like, you want to play them often. They give you great abilities. They normally cost a food. This says cost 2 food. You're paying 1 extra food to save an entire action and get another Ock out. You're also just paying a wood for a point, which is already a good card. Like, you can use this twice and save 2 actions.
Yeah.
Food is pretty cheap a lot of the times. Like, there's pretty often a lot of food in the set. Like, there's also so many Ock combos, specifically in this set, so maybe I'm overvalued a little, but I think Writing Desk is A tier. Like, it's very good.
Okay. Lumen, what do you have? What do you have here? Are you too low, or is Ryan
I'm probably a little too low, but I just don't. In practice, I find it harder to execute. That's all. The bonus.
Got it. So what you guys are saying is that it's probably in between the two of you.
Well, and there's a slight play style here. I'm kind of infamous for not really playing my early Ox, and then I feel like I need tempo to get them all out because I don't spend early actions to play them. So Lumen and other experts are better about just Ocking and figuring stuff out later. So
Cool. Truffle Slicer. This is a very fun card. Truffle Slicer is actually in the original CD expansion, so I've played with this card many times, and it's just really fun. It's really fun to grab a pig and then just like absolutely smash wood in the late game, and it's really fun in particular. I would imagine for Lumen because he's the wood policeman himself. And he probably grabs a pig and then just like goes truffle slicing the entire end game. You get your wood for your stables. You punish everyone for not taking wood with enough priority, and you pick up a triple of points. And I mean, what's for you guys? What's the most truffle slicing points you guys have ever had? I had one crazy one. Where I got 8 truffle slicing points over the board. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
No, I got challenged to do like 5, and I just tanked that game really hard. So this can be a trap if you try to go for it too hard.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize like it's perfectly okay to like just have like a 3-point card, spending a wood and just
like if truffle is 2 points, that's still like really good.
It's still quite a good miner, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So, no, I think my best truffle thus far was like 4. I had a 4-point truffle slicer thus far, but again, that's a great miner. 4 points is incredible.
Yeah, in that 8-point truffle slicing game, I had that shaving horse card where every time you take wood, you get extra points.
That game doesn't count.
Banned card. He had a banned card. Everyone, don't listen to his 8 points.
Oh, wait, is it banned now?
Well, it's not on BGA yet,
groups,
but I
groups
suspect
that I
it'll
play
be
with.
banned. Yeah, we'll talk about it in the future, but.
Got it. Sorry, guys. Sorry for confusing. And speaking of banned cards, actually, maybe this is relevant because we've got Crosscut Wood here, and I literally logged into Discord to chat with you guys. I saw some people chatting about banning Crosscut Wood, and I was like, oh, I'm about to go in here. I remember I ranked this card kind of like as a strong card, but not super strong. So are people doing some broken shit with this? Like, is this is that why are people talking about banning it then?
Only rarely is it broken. Yeah, Ryan, do you want to talk about it?
Sure. Yeah, it's not necessarily that it's broken. It's mostly banned for reasons of, as it's written here, kind of variance and distortion. Like, occasionally games you could have like a great Stonehouse game and then get to play this for like 12 wood, and it's absolutely insane. But even beyond that, it just like completely distorts the mid game for one player. Like they can just take like a pile of 3 stone and hammer reedstone food and build rooms and then just grow with cross-cut wood and add 6 wood to the game. All the players that were like taking wood earlier and didn't even know this card was maybe in this exact game, like all the valuations on the resources get so distorted by this, and I think that's really bad for the game itself. And I think it just creates a much better game experience for everybody. The fact this is passing also does just create problems sometimes. Like, I have definitely seen games where it got played like 3 rounds in a row by people that were just kind of sitting on some stone piles, and there was like 14 wood got added across 2 rounds by one card, and it's so warping on the whole economy of the game.
And so was it banned for this arena season, or is it in the set?
It is now banned.
Got it. Okay, cool. Good to know. That's really cool. Also, that the community can influence that kind of stuff. That's like we're honestly blessed that we're able to do that in a game that we love to play. Very cool. On to Hutch. So actually, Hutch and Chicken Coop are back to back, and I think we should talk about them. In the same way. And Ryan, I'll give it to you to chat about the two of them.
All right, yeah, I like both these quite a bit. The read cost for both is a bit annoying, but a point and some like trickles of food can be really nice throughout the game. So if you can set it up such that you are able to take like an early 2 or 3 read action and then just play these while you're start player in to build rooms or fight for growth, you get a really nice trickle of food throughout the game and you get a point, both of which are like really good effects. The expense is definitely a little annoying, but the combination of food and points makes for pretty strong cards.
Yeah, the way I think about the conversions is pretend you have the guild. Like, pretend you have a joinery and a BMW for 1 harvest, and you're basically getting a point and a food on top of it with Hutch, or I guess it's the same with Chicken Coop too. You get 1 bonus food, 1 point, and you only have the guilds for 1 harvest. Like, I think that's totally good.
That's really interesting that you guys say this, because obviously you can tell by my rankings here. When I reviewed these cards, I thought of them a lot more in the vein of like a Scullery or a you know, those the wood one clay cards that in and of themselves, like the effect is pretty strong, but the cost is a little bit, you know, not palatable. And I still have a hard time believing you guys that these costs are palatable. And maybe that's a playstyle difference
So
too.
you
But,
find this read
yeah.
after you build your room. You find this is
Yeah.
your third read, not your first clay with Skull.
I know, but your third read is for your second room.
You could
But,
definitely argue that.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And again, guys, and that's part of the beauty of this game, right? Very different play styles, very different ways to look. And I'll have to play with these cards a little bit to get a sense of if I can trust you guys or not. And speaking of trust you guys or not, looks like and you know, looks like I'm way off the mark here with the speed pellets. And you know what? It's funny. I quickly glance over the notes here and mea culpa here, because obviously when you play the card and you get a sheep, it's it's a lot better than where I ranked it. So yeah, there's no real excuse there. So Ryan, yeah, why is this a good card? It's it's a free sheep and
Yeah, it's a
Pretty much
card that
right.
has no prereqs, so you can play it anytime, which gives it tremendous flexibility. Flexible cards are very good. No matter what your game is, you'll be able to play this at some point for some use. It's never going to be a completely dead card. Some games, it's just going to be a 2-point action. You could like grow with it stupidly late and never take sheep at all. And then the extra ability on it is actually sometimes useful. There's a lot of vegetables in this set, as we've been talking about, and occasionally you're going to be sitting there with a cow and a bunch of one cow and a bunch of vegetables. You turn one of your vegetables into another cow, and you start having breeding cows, and like it allows you to get an extra point or two because of that.
yeah, that's awesome. Is Christianity in this card set?
It is not. But that would be a fun thing to unlock with feed pellets.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That's what I immediately thought of when I realized that this was a free sheep. Very cool. Okay, woodcart. So I'll take woodcart. Woodcart is very simple to understand, and it is very, very cool to combo with like a wood expert, for instance. Right, that's kind of the dream, comboing this woodcart with wood expert. It's 3 wood. Each time you use wood accumulation space, you get 2 additional wood. Actually, it might be an interesting, just very quick discussion here with you guys. Why is woodcart so much better than woodcutter for the audience?
It's because it's a minor improvement with a similar net effect, I would say. It's a minor improvement with better timing by a lot and a similar net effect. So if you can have the same card as a minor occupation, you're going to choose to have it as a minor. And woodcart wood is your fencing wood most of the time. The extra wood it gives you. You invest 3 wood, hopefully in the early and mid game, and it pays off for the rest of the game. You don't want to play woodcart too late. But instead of spending your stage 1 occupation action on woodcutter, spending a stage 3 minor improvement action on woodcart, hugely superior.
Got it. Yeah, and I fully agree and bought in. Horse-drawn boat. So this one was an interesting one for me too, because I looked at this and I was like, is this amazing or is this like a sheep whisperer? I really wasn't sure. And so I ranked it where I ranked it, obviously, but Ryan, we'll give this one to you because you have it ranked the highest inside the top 20.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I'm the one that plays this the most though. But it is quite good. Spending 2 wood, yes, you need 3 occupations, but you put a food and a sheep on each remaining rounds. If you have a way to eat those sheep, you're just like getting a food and a half a round. That's pretty good. It can lead to breeding sheep, later on once you actually fence and can just start holding the sheep. So any card that gives you points and food is a pretty, like, I've kind of said that, or it's been in the comments, like a card that gives you points and food is a very strong card. That's kind of what this does. It gives you sheep, which are points, and it gives you food.
Yeah, nice. We'll move on to Sheepwell here, and Sheepwell I have ranked really high. When I looked at it, I thought it was really strong. Mostly because I think like a card like Lumbermill is really strong, 2 stone for 2 points, and obviously Lumbermill is stronger than Sheepwell here. But even without the effect, just 2 stone into 2 points is quite a nice little conversion. And so, why am I overrating this? Is it just because the strength of the minor set is so high that it might not be worth the play, or what's the scoop here?
I mean, I have a guess. I have a guess, and that it's that you might be influenced by a few extra 3-player games. 3-player games, you're going to have easier access to animals, so Sheepwell can pay off for more food, usually. And 4 players, I think Sheepwell's probably not worth too many food most of the time. That's my biggest guess.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense for sure. I like these. I like these 2 stone to 2-point cards. I like having them in my hands.
I mean, when there's extra stone in the game, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. Fishing net. So each time another player uses the fishing accumulation space, they must first pay you 1 food. Has this fishing net? Do people end up like really getting affected by it? Does it warp the early game very much? When I ask it, does it warp the early game very much? Is because when I first looked at this card too, I wondered quite a bit around if someone plays this early, it really changes all the math around bottom feeding, right? And bottom, like that dynamic of how much food is in the game is really interesting. But I also don't know if people are playing this early at all, or if it's just a read to a point, really.
It gets played early sometimes. Occasionally it gets paid out quite a bit. I don't think it changes it that much because realistically you shouldn't or don't want to be taking food off the bottom all that much. Even if there is extra food getting added down there, repeatedly hitting fishing is not like that strong of an action. I'm definitely not salty though about the one game where a strong player played fishing net and somebody else fed him 8 fishing actions. I'm not still salty about that game, so.
I hope that's on a VOD. I'm going to have to go watch that. That would be amazing.
I probably could find it, yeah.
Yeah, you have to hit me with the link after. Okay, Lumen, we'll give it over to you for Reed Pond and Rehatted Toad back to back because they're interesting cards. Ryan's got them, rated like pretty substantially different. Lumen, still 10-point difference. To me, these cards are different, and obviously when you get the read, but it's interesting to hear your guys' thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general they're doing different things. The Toad gives you your renovation read without too much hassle and urges you to get the Basket Maker's Workshop. And Reed Pond is a lot more for your second room and first renovation. So they kind of are different play styles. I like Toad a lot more because I want to rate these round 1 start player actions a lot better. Because in the base set there are a few of them and much more here, and I think there aren't that many in the expansions relative to this CD set. So I do like the cheap free miners a lot. So that's why I like Toad more than Reed Pond. I'm also like Reed Pond used to have a point on it and now it doesn't. So maybe I'm deflating it too much.
And I might have it slightly too high. It's a little tricky. Some games Reed Pond really works out well because you get to like grow with it, and then you already have your read delivered for your next room. And some games it doesn't matter much. It depends a lot on how much read inflation there is, but that's the other. That's probably where I'm getting slightly tricked too. Like I think the current card set actually doesn't have that much read inflation, whereas I think we'll see some more again in other decks. And so if people are building lots of rooms, it can be hard to even get a 2 read action. So,
yeah, got it. I just thought it was really interesting here that you guys flipped almost on the ranking.
It is interesting.
Pond and Toad, and yeah, just that it's again wonderful game. Supply Boat, Lumen.
Supply Boat is, I think, one of the best examples of it's at least a wood to a point. Sometimes when you play Supply Boat, you might not fish at all. But it can really save you if you didn't get another grain source. You can always buy a grain to a food, and if that ends up being bad, you just convert the grain back to a food. So you're never losing out by taking the grain option. The veg option is pretty expensive, so while you could argue that that's a benefit of Supply Boat, it's really not most of the time. But this is like middling good, in my opinion.
Got it. And Ryan, Small Greenhouse.
Small Greenhouse is pretty good. It still requires, it has some prereqs, it has a cost, but it gives a point. You got to play it early enough, and then you have to pay food to get the vegetables. But the combined cost of 2 wood, 2 food, and you get a point and 2 vegetables is reasonably good. If you can handle delaying to get those vegetables and then just sow them late, it's a pretty solid package. it's just a very mid-lane card because it's a card you'll draft and sometimes it'll like kind of time out and you'll get the good wood grabs and be able to grow with it and play it in time. And some games it's just the time is just not going to work.
Yeah, got it. So Straw Thatch Roof. So obviously I'm I thought this was much better than it was. When I looked at that, I was like, 3 grave fields, no problem. Like this is amazing. No read costs. Let's go.
Three grade fields, no problem. What?
What are you doing, Chris? How are you getting 3 grain fields?
You know, lots of cards. No, I mean, fair enough. I mean, 3 grain fields is obviously hard to get. I guess obviously the problem with this card is that you have to completely sell out for it. So this I suppose is Field Watchman's best friend. I imagine. I can think of Field Watchman as a card that would do that, and then I suppose maybe there are some other types of ways that you can get around it as well. But interesting one.
There's occasional strategies that you can still pull off and have a decent one, but yes, the major issue is that to like use this for your first room is very rare unless you get the right like combination of Ox support, largely just like Field Watchman, a couple others. Occasionally though, yeah, you can like I think the slightly more common use case is probably going to be like you do a mid game farming and you use this to start player and then you never have to grab read for your renovates. That's a point plus saving your read actions is pretty good, but yeah, it's a card that only really shines in certain hands.
No, it makes perfect sense. I wonder if you can get the Straw Hatch Roof, Bricklayer, Clay Supports combo for the 1 wood rooms.
Could happen.
That's the dream. The 1 wood clay rooms. That's the dream. Okay, Foreign Aid. So when I looked at this card, I legitimately thought that it might be the worst card in the whole set. The reason being is I was like, how could this possibly ever be worth it? Like, I mean, it just looks like the biggest dooming of all time. But talk to me, guys. Like Ryan in particular.
First off, flashback to the Ock video. Chris Ho rating any card that gave him 3 food with like at least a B tier. Suddenly, Foreign Aid that just gives him 6 food. He's like, no, I can't touch that card.
Round 12, 13, 14, aka the best spots in the whole game.
They are the best spots, but the big issue is like how often do you actually get to use them, and does your game plan involve them? If you already plan to build 5 rooms, you don't need the family growth without space. If you're building 5 rooms, you have enough actions that you're pretty willing to maybe just take plow and take sow separately. And then you just have to make sure to work around red fence. That's the biggest issue a lot of times with the big house plan. But essentially the biggest issue with big house is pushing out your growth. And Foreign Aid gives you a huge amount of food to allow you to just pursue that stuff. And so it's really the trade-off. Is that early game food worth possibly like losing out on one efficient late game action? It very often can be, as long as you understand how to leverage that food.
Right, and sneaking this in on like a growth when people don't think you can grow because of food, also super powerful. So you want to think about not just it is 6 food, but it's 6 sneaky food in some situations.
Yeah.
It's flexible. Draft it and, hope that you don't need it. But if the game breaks in a poor way, you also have an out to keep pushing your game.
Chris, how often have you played Walking Boots?
You guys are convincing me. You guys are convinced. Now I'm going to play this all the time. This, I like the 6 sneaky food aspect. I hadn't really thought of it that way because you're right. Sometimes it's like, sometimes you're sitting around a table and you're like, this guy can't grow. There's no way he can grow because, I mean, obviously he's just going to starve. And that is very appealing to me to have that kind of in the back pocket. And you're right, Walking Boots. Yeah. I mean, it's fair enough. Very, very fair enough. I can get behind it. Yeah, obviously my first blush was probably, I just when I first looked at this, I was like, every time I play this, I'm going to hate myself. Like every single time I play this, I'm going to hate myself.
No, I think my first idea of it was probably similar, honestly.
Yeah, interesting.
To be fair, you'll still slightly hate yourself when you play it, especially because like the first 2 or 3 times you played on BJ, you're going to forget about it, and then the spaces are going to be grayed out, and you're going to be like, there's a bug. Oh, wait, no, I played this stupid card and forgot about it.
Oh, God, you're right. Okay, speaking of things, Carriage Trip. So it looks like I heard Carriage Trip is also banned. That's and so why was Carriage Trip banned? If Ryan, if you can walk me through that.
This one's banned for annoyance reasons. Carriage Trip breaks the normal flow of turn order in the game, and that's just incredibly annoying. Just in general, every turn you have to be like, oh wait, you have to like add an extra cognitive load of like, oh wait, they could renovate into this action, they could start player into this action. Like being able to take multiple actions in a row just really like messes with the kind of strategic planning and prediction that's kind of at the heart of the skill of the game. And then on top of that, there's like really dumb combos also that can happen. You can play this off of like Furnisher. So you build a room and get to play Carriage Trip as an action and then just instantly grow. And so it creates really like sneaky and annoying ways for people to subvert the normal grow queues and stuff. And all the other players having to act like and play around it is dumb. And so just removing the card makes everybody happier.
Yeah, I think it's really the Furnisher into grow and then start build guaranteed.
Yeah.
I think those are like the two really most annoying things about it.
Yeah, the start build guaranteed is what's jumped out to me as the likely reason that it was going to be banned. So yeah, makes sense to me.
And so rating this was hard. Like Lumen's rating is probably pretty reasonable actually, because yeah, it like having it in your hand occasionally lets you do absolutely absurd things, and then
Yeah,
at the worst case, you just start player with it late. But
yeah, when it's not banned, that's actually how I like to use it best, is start player in 12 or 13 to get like the last important action that I want to make sure I get in the game. Because I don't want to pass this off to my opponent and then let them use it after me.
Yeah, got it. Makes perfect sense. Stone clearing. Ryan.
I think this is it's a kind of tricky card to use well, because if you have a bunch of fields, you want them to have crops in them, and not stone usually. But some games you can time it out where you have a bunch of open fields. You kind of like start player stone clearing into a late plow sow, and now you got your renovation stone. Occasionally in the mid game, even maybe you can play stone clearing and get like 3 stone off it before you're going to sow your fields. If the timing works out, having a minor improvement that just injects a bit of stone into your game can be quite nice. Lumen probably has a more realistic rating on it though, because the amount of times I actually get to pull this off versus what I plan to or want to use it has not been going great for me.
It's probably between our rankings, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for this card because actually the only CD game that I've played on BGA so far was with you, Ryan, and I pulled up that like 6 stone one. Remember, that was sick. I was like, oh, this card's amazing. Hunting trophy. So I'll take this one. It's literally just a 3-point card so long as you have 4, which can be very good. I don't think it's particularly. It's not like a game-defining card and should not be part of any major plans or anything like that. But really, really nice little extra piece of wood as well when you go ahead and do run fences with it near the end of the game. And so there are ways where this can end up being a pretty nice little mid-game card to play. So flail looked to me like it was just like better threshing board. Is that not what's this 48? Lumen.
Threshing board has a point, Chris.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Do you hate points?
This is,
but again, back to Chris Ho and his food, and still doesn't like 4 and 8. Look, reevaluate your life.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so this is like equal threshing board, which is a fantastic card. I remember you guys hated on threshing board before too. That was what this threshing board is a ridiculously good card. In the first video that we did, I ranked it top like 8 or something, and you guys were like, "That's great."
Oh, that's right. You had it really high. Yeah.
You did. You clearly prefer to have some extra bake actions and bake strategies, and that's very reasonable. It's a great way to feed when it works out. If you're running a lot of baking strategies, yeah, I mean, flail is going to be great.
Good stuff. Stone cart. So stone cart, I'll just take. It's just we had clay supply. Really, really, really up there, and stone cart really, really, really down here. And obviously the reason is just the timing. Right, getting an interspersing of stone throughout the game is almost never going to be worth the 2 wood, honestly. And in some cases it will be, but it's just not that often. So, not a super strong card. Stork's Nest. This card I really wasn't sure about. I would love to take a little bit of time to talk through this one too, because I've heard some people say that Stork's Nest is very strong. And so I'm interested to hear the thoughts around that, and I'll pass it off to Lumen to chat about that first.
Sure. So Stork's Nest is a card that just has very high variance. A lot of the time you draft it, it's going to do nothing. But there are some games where you're either going to get a huge amount of rooms late, and there are games where you're going to build a lot of rooms early and growth doesn't flip till late. When you're in either of those situations, so the first situation would be like Wooden Hut Extender and Round 7 growth. If you can get 4 other Ox and play Stork's Nest, you're in fantastic shape. Another situation is if you play Clay Supports but don't get your 4th and 5th rooms until round 12 or 13, and maybe you like blow up your house and make it 7 or 10 rooms, I don't know. But like Stork's Nest can also give you those growths in the late game for no actions, and it's really valuable then too because you're still busy farming when you're building your rooms that late. So there are just a couple situations where Stork's Nest really opens up your game, and a lot of games where it does nothing.
Yep, got it. No, that makes perfect sense to me. Trident, yeah. So Trident, there's just a passing food. Passing food you can only play in 3, 6, 9, and 12. So I imagine and hope that people aren't playing this in round 3 very, very often. It's more of a kind of a 6, 9, 12 for the extra food that you would need. Really interesting card to remember if it's in the draft or not too. Just to remember if that extra food is going to be injected into the game, because I think Trident is probably relevant enough to just remember that it could be passing around. Might change the food economy of the game a little bit.
Yeah.
Steam Machine, Ryan.
2 wood for a point is a little expensive, but it's okay. And the effect here is pretty good if you have a baking game, because a lot of spaces count. There's a lot of accumulation spaces, and so getting those extra bake actions is good. So if you got a baking game, 2 wood for a point and saving you a couple of bake actions can work out. Yeah, it's solid.
Yeah. On to Farm Store here. So Farm Store, when I first looked at it, looked like a card that I would consider unplayable. Have either of you two brought it out here yet?
Yeah. I think it's plenty playable in some situations. You don't want to ever spend, well, I shouldn't say ever, but you rarely want to spend the resources too early. But it really does some nice tactical things. If you decide to buy like a reed and a stone in the mid game, all of a sudden you can build that room or a major improvement that you really wanted. And its default action is to like give you a veg for a food, which is not bad at all, especially if it's your only veg source in the game. So you can find enough combinations that discount Farm Store's cost. Lumber mill, wood expert, furnisher, bricklayer. There are enough ways to make the pretty expensive cost a lot easier. And you can think of it as changing 2 wood and 2 clay into better resources like stone and reed when you need them, or vegetables.
That's fair enough. I actually didn't really consider that. And obviously, I mean, if you play it off of Wood Expert and or Bricklayer, and would be cool, Bricklayer, it becomes a monster. So fair enough. I hadn't thought that transparently about that card.
I mean, it's definitely tricky, and there again, same idea. Like, there's gonna be some games you don't want to play it, but I agree. There's been a couple scenarios where it's like it's quite good. Like, especially like saving you a read action or two is great. Saving you, like, there's too many games too, right? Where you're like that one annoying clay away or one stone away from renovation, and this being able to just give you the right trickles when you need it can be pretty powerful.
Yeah, no, fair, very fair. I guess if you really think about it, in terms of potentially saving you an action, like when you're like just need one clay to renovate, right? Like how many times have people been in that situation? Fair enough. I'll give it a shot. The stable architect Muckrake. I can imagine that this card is again only playable in combination with stable architect. Like, why else would you ever play this card? What's going on here? Is it
I mean,
I guess it's like surrender stables too, right? When you want to play it.
Well, and much like stable architect, they both have a slight use if you're running into problems of filling your farm. It essentially does help you fill in extra spaces then. So it has some use cases, but yeah, it's often best with a combo with Stable Architect, obviously. But
Yeah, if you don't plow enough, then higher chance Muckrake is good.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fair enough. Um, feed fences. Go ahead, Limit.
So the effective feed fences can net you 6 food. It can save you 2 wood and let you pay a clay instead, but then you needed to pay a wood for a feed fence in the first place. It's just that the net effect is not very big. Trading in a wood for some really late food can be good, but how often do you build 4 stables? I've actually been finding myself building 4 stables a lot recently, so maybe I should pick feed fence a little higher. Maybe this is a little too low. But it does not ever do that much.
Yep, got it. And then private forest. So it looks like I'm quite a bit higher on private forest than you guys. I actually just for the viewers too, I rated this like number 3 or number 4 overall, and these guys were like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "It gives you wood every turn. Like, it gives you 14 wood. How could it not be like one of the words ever?" And they're like, "Read it again." I was like, "Oh, okay." It gives you wood every other turn. And so I obviously brought it down from. I thought it was just this insane card that was just like a small scale farmer for life. But in any case, I reread it, and I still think that it's probably, to me anyway, a really good first turn miner, right? Because when you play it on your very first turn, you still get 2 of the wood in your first stage, right? 2 of the wood, and then you're just a 3 wood and 1 3 wood action away from having your early room parts. And so to me, that's worth the 2 food cost early, but. Obviously, you guys aren't quite as high on it, and maybe it's just a little bit too tricky to pull off.
Putting yourself low on food early can have a huge amount of downstream effects. So if you play Private Forest, you have to be very careful about your stage 1 food, or have some sneaky out like Foreign Aid coming in also.
Well, and my real take is actually you feel the effects of Private Forest harshest in the stage 2 harvest. You can often find like a 3 food or 4 food action, and you'll sneak through the stage 1 harvest fine. But it's that stage 2 where all of a sudden you're fighting for growth and have 0 food that you realize that Private Forest tempo is what's killing you here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. Recycled brick. Lumen.
Recycled brick has very, very weird timing. Very much like the Auk version, Resource Recycler, which gives you clay rooms, recycled brick will give you a clay per room instead. So recycled brick really shines when you have the pottery and don't want to spend clay actions. Like, if clay is tight and you have pottery, then this card's amazing. But like, other than that, it's like really hard to use that clay when people are renovating the stone. Like, do you want a massive tiebreaker value? Well, then play recycled brick. So you could say it's worth half a point.
Got it. No, I think we're aligned here. It didn't seem like a card that made too much sense. While you were talking, I just was chuckling because I was looking down to the next thing, and I've got Skulls are ranked 11th, and you guys are ranked 49th and 50. So did I misread this? It's a stone to 2 BP like that you can play every game, no? You can only play this card if there are more complete rounds left to play than you have unused farm card spaces. That's not that hard to play, right? Isn't this just like so often 2 points for a stone in the late game? Like,
you have to on average fill out 1 space per round in order to play it, because when you start the game you have 13 unused and 13 complete rounds left, so you have to get above that tempo of farmyard spaces used. So you need like a big fence action pretty early.
So back up for me for a second. So what if I finish my farm in round 12?
Then you're good to go.
I have no unused spaces left, right?
Sure, you're good.
So let me get this straight.
So you're not plow sowing in round 13. You're not plow sowing in round 14 because you filled the farm already.
Okay, no, but so if I finish in round 13 though, if I finish around 13, it's no good.
You can do that.
I can't play this.
You could play it, yeah, sure.
So it's a 2 points for a stone, and it encourages me to complete my farming in an efficient way.
I think you just haven't realized how often that is. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you realize how often. Also, the follow up is how often do you actually need a 2 point action in round 13? Like, are you struggling to find 2 point actions at that stage?
I'm it's probably not ranked 11th. Probably not 11th overall. Okay, we'll reevaluate. I'll play a couple of games. We'll reevaluate.
Yeah, a stone to 2 point is a great conversion. You're absolutely correct. I think you're dramatically overestimating how often this gets played. It basically the notes I think covers this. Like I think you're way overestimating how often it gets played, and the payout isn't good enough to contort your game to try to stretch for it. So all too often you kind of draft this late, and if the timing just works out, cool. But a lot of times it just does nothing.
So you guys are ranking this like it's like one of these like major or like it's like one of these like big country support cards. That's
It's great for big country.
It's great for
course,
big country.
yeah,
Also,
yeah.
to be fair, again, the other wild thing is like, yes, we're at the bottom of this deck of cards, but we're still giving this a C tier. Like, it is playable. This deck of cards is like quite good.
Yeah. No, that's a really good call out. I mean, compared to what we were working with before. I don't know. I haven't been watching your streams, but are you still raging at people for start playing, or are you being more reasonable about it now?
Well, yeah, I guess let's take this moment to say that. No, start player is actually like often a good action now. You still can definitely take too many start player actions. That can mess things up, right? You still can kind of over start player, but start player is a much better action now because the card quality is actually worth playing.
And like
most of these cards are worth an action.
one thing that happened against me, the player after me played Blueprint, Pottery, Education bonus in stage 1, but then had a begging student. Like I can't get mad at that. You're doing great things. I can't get mad at that.
Yeah. No, that's crazy and makes a lot of sense. I want to watch that game. That's awesome. Oh man. Schnapps Distillery. We'll give this one to you, Lumen.
So Schnapps Distillery is often a trap. The cost of Schnapps Distillery is not only 2 stone, but it's a vegetable that you could be putting into the ground or eating in a hearth, if you had a hearth. So the 2 stone to 2 points, that's fine. And Schnapps Distillery isn't necessarily bad, but you can't be thinking of Schnapps Distillery as a gigantic points and food machine unless you're planning on somehow getting 10 vegetables to start with. And it's just hard to play Schnapps Distillery, in my opinion. It's hard to justify spending that cost.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. We're on to game trade here. So I'll take game trade. You can trade 2 sheep for a cow and a pig. This can be pretty good if you have, one of these fence situations where you had defense early and you got a bunch of sheep and then weren't able to get your final fences until your rent fence. Yeah, I can think of a game like that. Sometimes stuff like that can really help you just go ahead and get that boar and cattle. I also noticed that Constable is around as well, and I think this is a good Constable out for the most part.
Absolutely.
Just especially because that cow can sometimes be really hard to get. Stable. So a wood to a stable is totally fine. It's a passing miner. It's also a passing miner that, again, I haven't been playing, but I can imagine for some reason that people will love to play this. Like, so when you pass it to them, they're going to play it on you as well. No, it's not the case. Oh, interesting.
It's that the utility of a stable is not really much. Like, going from 0 to 1 stables is not huge. You almost never have 1 stable and get the second with stable. So it's really like the second stable is hugely important for breeding stuff, and otherwise stables don't have that much utility except for points at the end.
Yeah. It's just a point, though, right? A stable is still a point. So you're putting a point down on the board for a wood.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with stable. It's just like not going to be hugely important to anyone's game.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Wildlife Reserve, Brian.
This is another 2 wood for a point, and it kind of has an awkward prereq of already needed 2 ox, and the effect is pretty bad. It's not bad. It's just it doesn't do enough. Most of the time, it doesn't matter that you can hold a sheep, a boar, and a cow on this card. It doesn't allow you to breed animals. If it allowed breeding, it would be much better, like significantly better. But it doesn't. In order to breed, you still need some other capacity. And if you have that other capacity, you probably don't need Wildlife Reserve in order to enable the breeding. So this is most of the time just 2 wood to a point. That's not very good.
Yeah. And we'll come up to Dwelling Mound here because I thought Dwelling Mound looked pretty dope. I mean, it's just I guess it's just too much food. Eh? It's too scary because it's for every field tile. But
And it's just the tempo of when you have to play it. Like, if you're going to be start player it anyhow, and you know you have enough food in your game, then sure, you get 3 extra points. That's great. But some games you just don't want to start, and so having to get this out is annoying. And then it can be a lot of food. Like, paying that much food throughout the game in order to get your fields is you're not really netting anything. Like, even in the last harvest, a lot of times it comes down to every point is about 3 food or every point is about 4 food. So Dwelling Mound is really only netting you 1 point, maybe.
1 point. Yeah, because it's going to be, in most games 6 food for 3 points.
And early food is way more, like, I'm also talking, like, right? Like, it depends on when you're plowing those fields, but if you're plowing during the mid game and early game food are way more important. So I think I think Dwelling Mound is a big trap most of the time.
You have to be thinking of your feeding plan with the Dwelling Mound food involved if you're playing Dwelling Mound, and you have to think about that in your feeding plan the whole game. You can't forget about it.
Yeah, I can imagine this. I can imagine Dwelling Mound causes some beggars by accident. So it can be hard to remember, I imagine. Milking Place. So actually, we're coming up on the last 2 minors here, and I think they're, mostly the only minors that are really, really hard for anyone to get behind, and it's because they both cost a grain, right? I mean, Milking Place at least does. I don't even know. It doesn't even really do much that you want, right? In the feeding phase of each harvest, you get 1 food, but you can no longer hold animals in your house. Is that ever good?
Sure.
Probably not.
I mean,
it's probably not a great trade-off, right, for the most part.
If you're sowing a couple grain early, I have no problems with people playing Milking Place if you don't have Animal Tamer or Domestician Expert. Like, there are so many ifs, and sowing really early grain doesn't happen that often also. Like, do you really want to, like, spend an early Storehouse Keeper grain for Milking Place if you don't have a second grain source? No, you don't. Having the grain is usually more valuable than throwing it to Milking Place unless you have a ton of grain.
Yeah, and Ryan, Ravenous Hunger. It's pretty funny. When I looked at Ravenous Hunger, I thought that might be one of the worst cards I've ever seen printed, and just immediately put it. I toggled between this and 4 and 8 at 54, just so you guys know, because I was like 4 and 8's so bad. Like it's obviously I was obviously wrong with that, but I was like 4 and 8's got to be the worst card in this whole set. And then Ravenous Hunger, I just put it at 54 and moved 4 and 8 up a bit just to show my uncertainty, but. Yeah. Ravenous Hunger has no redeeming qualities. I can't imagine it ever being played.
It occasionally does get played. It has a small niche.
Who's
yeah.
So Chris, you know that occupation that you liked enough for me to put in the thumbnail?
Sorry, which one?
I put Pet Lover behind you for.
Pet Lover. Yeah, Pet Lover's amazing. You want me to? Come on, are you kidding me?
No. So basically, Pet Lover helps if you're on a big house strategy, injecting food, right? So you have a grain, you throw it to Ravenous Hunger. In the future, you go on vegetable, you get your veg out of the way, and now you get to jump to cow, take an extra cow, and Pet Lover it. Ravenous Hunger is used on big house strats when you have a hearth and all of a sudden you get hungry and somehow you have an extra grain. Now, that's a lot of ifs. It's going to come up very infrequently. But in those situations, like it can actually, like it's a good card to inject a lot of food in the game because it works on animal accumulation spaces in addition to just building resources. So you take a veg and you jump to an animal spot and add a ton of food to the game.
Right. You pretty much always want to be taking animals as your Ravenous Hunger second move. You don't really want to be... Like, maybe sometimes stone is good enough, maybe sometimes wood is good enough in a huge pinch, but, like, don't use Ravenous Hunger to take a clay stack with an extra clay, right?
You also don't really want to Ravenous Hunger all that often. Again, you never want to be spamming the veg space. You need a million actions. Like, it's essentially a very awkward feeding engine, I think, is the only way you really play this and net value. But it can occasionally save you.
Okay, I'm gonna draft this card one time with Pet Lover just for you guys, but like I can't even imagine myself just like spamming this vegetable button and throwing away my precious grain. Oh man. Anyway, guys, we're at the end here. Very, very cool. I think we did that in nice time. And hopefully we put together a nice little vid for the community here, and hopefully spark some discussion as well. And I'm excited to see the what did I say? 4-point milking stool. Maybe I should have made it a 5-point milking stool.
Nah, no.
Let's get the
5 is impossible.
let's get
4 is
10
actually
life,
possible.
10 cow life.
10's
10
not
cow life.
possible. You're gonna actually kill your game for that.
Okay, 4-point milking stool challenge. Let's go. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. That was super, super fun, and thanks to everyone else for tuning in.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, have fun with these miners. So many of them are good and playable in certain circumstances. Find spaces to use them that we didn't talk about and post about it. Like, tell us your best moments with a card that we might have ranked too low.
Yep, agreed. There's a lot of fun to be had in this set. The game really opens up. Thanks, guys, for hanging out and chatting. It's been great.